welcome back to Politics Relaxed podcast. Today we are discussing how we create change. First of all, Marcus Rashford, and then we'll move on to Extinction Rebellion.
And, some people could even label them as terrorists with some of the terrible things they're doing. They're stopping, planes from taking off. They're doing terrible things to save the environment.
First, let's talk about Marcus Rashford and his amazing campaign to feed hungry children.
Tommy.
I think Marcus Rashford's campaign was a very good one. It gave people a good look into the issues that the government weren't necessarily focusing on. I think this has been approached many times by many people before, but it only gained this much traction because of his status as a high-end footballer. I mean, we've seen other celebrities have been endorsed by companies to do campaigns, but it just looked genuine, and this one felt genuine, and I think that's why it did so well from him. And it just makes you think about what about these celebrities that feel really deeply passionate about something that probably needs to happen. What if they spoke out for that, and how much could actually happen? Because there are people that have influence over many.
Yeah. They did definitely feel different, though. It felt like there was a way more genuine kind of reason for doing it. Because celebrities all the time take up causes and do charities and everything like that. But it doesn't ever change government policy. And Marcus Rashford has changed government policy not once, but twice. Which is extremely impressive, even if you have such a big audience. Rajan.
Yeah, so obviously Marcus Rashford being a celebrity, being in such in the public eye, obviously he's going to get a lot of publicity, and that's natural. And I think the reason why that we considered Marcus Rashford and the people considered him to be genuine is because he experienced himself. It's not just a celebrity that's going on about a random campaign. It's a celebrity that's going on a campaign that he has personally experienced. When he was younger, Marcus Rashford, he was struggling with food, much like his friends. Also, giving another example, such as Jamie Oliver, his Feed Me Better campaign in 2005 received a lot of public receptivity because he's a chef himself, he's a food man, and back in 2005, because of his status, he managed to change school dinners forever.
Well, I think it's Well, I think it's quite a sad reflection on our society that we need such a big figure to change such a small thing. Feeding children is obviously quite an important thing, and I think it's quite sad that we had to get such a famous person with such power to change basic rights for a child. And you can stop with the flip-flopping stuff.
Weren't you the one who said that the government meals were adequate?
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah, but that was after they had fed people, the children.
Flip-flopped again.
And I always
flip-flopped.
was
Flip-flopped live on the podcast. Flip-flopped.
feeding
Here we go. Flip-flop.
the children.
Flip-flop.
Marcus Rashford should have brought...
Daily dose.
Yeah, can we read a quote? Can we read a quote from what he said? He said it might be good to have a smaller portion because it could curb childhood obesity. I got that message from Daniel the other day.
Well, obviously that was a joke, wasn't it? And that had to be taken as a joke.
A joke, yeah, sure. You hate
Proportional food representation, anyone?
I don't think that this is to Daniel Jones. I don't think that starving kids is exactly the best way to make them lose weight. Saying that's just all I'm saying.
Portions that were adequate to younger children, I would say.
It was for 17-year-olds. Absolutely.
Well, I didn't know that at the time, did I?
You didn't know that at the time. So
No, I thought they were probably up to 12 or whatever.
12-year-old. Do you still think that is not adequate for a 12-year-old? You know what?
Well, I mean, from what I saw, it was a loaf of bread.
Look at him, he's flip-flopping again. Now it's not adequate. Now it's adequate. Just flip-flop, flip-flop.
Well, I mean, it was adequate for younger children. I would say,
Okay.
vegetarian younger children.
Oh, come on. We're not getting into that now. We're not getting it, Cameron.
Hello. So
I feel as though obviously I have massive admiration for Marcus Rashford's campaign. And I think that the work that he has been doing has been fantastic. And I'm glad that the government have taken so much of his advice on board and implemented it successfully. But I actually want to talk about Daniel's point as well there, because I think it's interesting, and I actually understand his sentiment in that many children are suffering from childhood obesity. But I don't think tightening the sizes of our school meals is actually the way of tackling that. I think what you'll find is that the growth of fast food chains is actually responsible for that.
Do you know who would tackle childhood obesity? Brian Rose for London. Childhood obesity.
Well, yeah. And we have to, in all seriousness, this is the important point I wanted to make. We have to tackle childhood obesity because obviously that leads into later life obesity, and that can give you many health issues, as we've seen exposed by the COVID pandemic, for example, something that Boris Johnson has himself suffered from, being fat by his own admission. And I think that the way we do this, as I said, is by tackling these fast food chains that have taken over our high street. I personally detest fast food. I literally never eat it if possible, because I think it's disgusting, and B, it makes you obese, as we're talking about here, because people can get addicted to it and eat so much of it that is the kind of end of the road. So that's the area where I think we've got to tackle, because I think actually our school meals at the moment are only just correct in the first place, only just adequate. So we can't, take food away from that. It's what they eat outside of school that's probably the problem.
But the main problem here is, when we're talking about obesity, we are going on to obesity now, and I don't really mind, because nobody cared about Marcus Rashford that much. There was only one thing to say about it, and it was great. But on the subject of fast food and fat, it's because people can't afford actual food. They can't afford vegetables. They can't afford a good balanced diet. It's because they have to go to McDonald's because it costs £1.99 to get a burger and chips. And
Actually, it's 99p.
Sorry, I've never been to McDonald's myself because, I'm vegetarian.
Well, actually, no, if you're going to get chips, it's probably more than that.
Yeah, it's probably about, £1.99 for a drink, chips and burger. We're not going into pricing now. But anyway, something like that. It's less than £2 to get a full meal at McDonald's, and that's why people are going there. And that's a really important issue that we have to tackle. Daniel.
Well, first of all, who doesn't love a great Big Mac on Friday? In response to Cameron, burgers are great. Second of all, I think that the main driving force about this is actually school meals. In my school we have burgers, chips, crap, and especially for people who get free school meals, they can just get that every day for free. And that's as bad as McDonald's. And so I think healthier school meals would be a better thing.
So can I interject there? Actually, can I interject there? Because I think you'll find actually schools and education institutions have to abide by regulations on the food that they are feeding children. These regulations, of course, set by governments over the decades, and we've come to a place now where schools, they are abiding by these regulations, and they're giving children the right healthy food. And I know and I'm sure everyone here, we go to schools, we experience school meals, and there is I think it's probably nonsensical to say that there is any school in which you'll be offered burgers and chips every day.
No. In my school, we have a hot fridge, and a hot shelf.
Fridge.
You get burger and chips and a drink for £2. And a person on free school meals would much rather get that than a cold sandwich.
You've just flip-flopped on a home appliance. It's unbelievable.
We're gonna get pulled off in it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my god.
Oh, fridge.
Daniel Evans.
Flip-flop, a hot fridge.
Wait, can
Yeah, go, Daniel.
I think I might sound like a knobhead for saying this, but I think in a way the government's trying to be a bit too controlling over what the kids are eating, because I think at the end of the day it's your own choice what you eat. And yes, I think it's good that the government gives some advice and encourages the kids to eat healthily and all that, but at the end of the day, it's not really the government's place to decide what the kids are eating. It's like down to their parents or whatever.
Okay, but these people are costing the NHS.
I think
Would you
it's time-
tackle childhood
They're
obesity
costing the
then?
NHS money. And if they don't get like proper, if the government are feeding them like burgers and chips every day from the hot
No.
fridge, then they're going to be costing the NHS like millions.
That's not what I'm trying to say. I don't mean like with school meals. I mean like in general. I always see like posters saying like don't eat this or whatever, and like yes, I that's fair enough, because like I encourage the government to encourage the kids to eat wisely and all
I'm going
that.
to interrupt because if you tell someone, oh, don't eat McDonald's, are they going to stop eating McDonald's? If you feed them healthy food and that's like nice, then will they try to choose healthy food? Yes.
1 in 3 children when they leave primary school are fat, by the way.
Thank you, Daniel.
I can't.
The way he said that,
Daniel, do you want to talk about how much you hate fat?
I hate every single one of them. They're absolutely disgusting. You know?
I've been
Sounds to
personally
stay
abused by Daniel, everyone, as the resident fat person on the podcast.
Yeah. Rajan ticks all the boxes. He's great. He's like everything.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Also fat person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just great.
Enhance.
Although I love hearing about Daniel's hot fridges and about his fat statistics, I think we need to move on now. So I want to move on to Extinction Rebellion because at least we might have some shouting here. Because I am part of Extinction Rebellion, if you didn't already know. We did another episode on this.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed. No, I'm actually a member. I'm an actual member, not a self-proclaimed member. No. I've been to Extinction Rebellion protest, and you've probably seen the video before where I sound like a really squeaky person. I watched it like the other day to see what arguments I used, and I just found out that I was very squeaky. That's really all I found. So I want somebody else to start because I've already made my arguments for Extinction Rebellion in a prior video, and I know Cameron commented on that, talking about all the middle class. Oh no, Daniel always likes to get angry at Extinction Rebellion. Let's go to him.
Well, I obviously do agree with Extinction Rebellion. They're a fantastic organisation protecting the environment. But I would rather they did it peacefully, not stopping people from getting to their cancer treatment, not stopping ambulances from getting not stopping ambulances from getting to hospital. You know, this is all absolutely terrible things. And, you know, some people could even label them as terrorists with some of the terrible things they're doing. They're stopping, you know, planes from taking off. They're doing terrible things to save the environment. And I obviously do agree with helping the environment, but I don't think doing all of those terrible things will help it at all.
Yeah. No, I accept your point. Ambulances should never be stopped for a protest. I accept your point completely. Ambulances should never be stopped for a protest. And Extinction Rebellion policy is to let ambulances through. And if that ever doesn't happen, I'm not going to try and defend that because there's no way I can defend it. They should be letting ambulances through. And it's as simple as that, really. You flip-flopped again, though, because you've just said that Extinction Rebellion is a great organisation, which surprised me very much. It kept me on my toes, you know.
Well, I agree with their points. You know, there is a great climate emergency that we need to change. But stopping ambulances from getting to their, you know, point of destination is an absolutely terrible thing.
Yeah, you do like to label things terrorists. You did call the UAE terrorists the other day, but Cameron, you're laughing, and yet the government have labelled them, put them on a terrorist list. Priti Patel put them on a terrorist list at one point, and it was in like the extremist police. Like I think they call them extremists, not terrorists, actually. But you're laughing. But do you want to defend the government on this one?
Yeah. Okay. So, no, I'm not going to defend the government on that one. I think there are definitely certain parts or certain groups of Extinction Rebellion that probably could be classified as terrorists. Certainly, perhaps some of the ones that are causing massive disruption, and certainly I think any groups that prevented ambulances to getting to the desired destinations is, in my view, terrorist behaviour. You are literally ending people's lives by that kind of action. But I do think as though the Extinction Rebellion do have a important point to raise and emphasize, which is that we are dealing with one of the biggest emergencies in this world's history, and it's important that we do face up to that challenge. And I think the government have actually done well on this. You know, the government here in the UK at least have got highly ambitious climate targets to have a green industrial revolution, creating 250,000 jobs, offshore wind to power every home, developing first town heated entirely by hydrogen, increasing the importance of nuclear energy, car manufacturers to accelerate the transition to electric cars. Of course, we're banning the sale of petroleum and diesel cars by 2030. We're investing in public transport and green methods of transport like cycling and walking. We're supporting industries to become greener. We're making homes, schools and hospitals greener, creating 50,000 jobs by 2030. Of course, we're becoming a world leader in the kind of revolutionary carbon capture tech that could change the game completely. We're of course planting 30,000 hectares of trees a year. And the final thing is we are making the City of London the global centre of green finance. That all amasses to 250,000 green jobs. And I think it's a really important step forward. As time goes on, I think we'll see these policies develop more and perhaps become even more ambitious. Hopefully that's what we can see, because I'm sure Felix will make the point perhaps that some of them aren't ambitious enough. Perhaps, for example, that the overall target of net zero by 2050 isn't ambitious enough. But I think as we progress through this, perhaps we'll get more ambitious as we go on. But I think it's a very good start, the plan for the green industrial revolution.
Okay. And how about did building a new coal mine, which is happening in the next few weeks to close in 2049, count to that green revolution?
I don't support that decision.
You don't support that decision, okay? I just don't think the government are doing enough. Like, if they were hitting these targets, which I don't believe they will, even if they were hitting these targets, it probably wouldn't be enough, and that's what the science says. It would not be enough. But even without that, they're not going to hit those targets. I do not believe the government will hit those targets. When they're building coal mines that are going to close in 2049, that is not hitting those targets. And then again, when we talk about this 2050 number, most of that carbon's just being outsourced to like other countries. It's not actually stopping the carbon being created. So carbon neutral by 2050 is one, not good enough, and two, is not really genuine. God, loads of people want to speak. Tommy.
Just a bit on Extinction Rebellion. I think with me, like many political movements, I agree with the message. I disagree with the organization and some of the methods they choose to take. I guess that most times there will be peaceful protests, but there's always a few sour grapes that ruin the lot. I mean, I think we saw, I'm not sure if they're linked to Extinction Rebellion, but there were some that locked themselves outside the New York Stock Exchange. There were some that glued their hands to the floor, but I'm not sure if they're very aware of the manufacturing process of glue and how unenvironmentally friendly it is. And there was a man who climbed on a plane at London City, and I disagree with these methods of protest because I don't see it achieving anything.
I was on a different tab trying to look if those New York Stock Exchange protesters were Extinction Rebellion, but I can't type quick enough. But no, you make some points that I don't agree with. My question to you is, how do you actually create change? Because I don't know if you believe this as well, but I don't believe the government is acting quick enough on climate change and hard enough on climate change. So I don't know how you how you want to go about this without doing a march does not create a difference because it does not affect the government. The government won't create change unless the government is affected. And Extinction Rebellion, the founders have spent years researching ways of protest and which ways are most effective. Tommy, you also made the point about, what did you make the point about? Glue, that was it, glue. Gluing on and locking on are very common tactics within Extinction Rebellion. The hypocritical environmentalist thing is just not right, because Extinction Rebellion are looking to make governmental change. Their individual change will not be enough because we're facing a climate emergency.
Well, I mean, one way to get the government to notice you is to invade the Capitol building, but that didn't go down very well on January the 6th, did it?
It didn't know, but Extinction
Yeah.
Rebellion.
So, what would you support if environmental activists invaded the Capitol building?
I would not know because Extinction Rebellion are non-violent. That's the first rule with Extinction Rebellion. They're completely non-violent.
Yeah, sure, but if there was an environmental group that did not refrain from violence, then and surely the cause for climate change, for fixing climate change, is more important than a few senators' lives.
No way. No way. That's utterly.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe killing
Oh, okay.
somebody. I don't believe
I'm just
killing somebody would.
just clarifying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine.
Clarifying.
Yeah. Extinction Rebellion are non-violent, completely non-violent. So that is the first thing
You sure?
to make clear. Did Tommy make any other points that I want to respond to? I don't think he did, but the glue thing. Oh yeah, I was going to talk a bit more about that. Yeah, gluing on to common tactic, but the hypocritical environmentalist just doesn't stand up to that much scrutiny when you're trying to make governmental change. So yeah, there's loads of people that want to speak. Daniel.
Well, like everyone else on it, I agree with their policies and all that. Just I think there's two problems with Extinction Rebellion. First one is, in a way, they can kind of be compared to England away fans, because even they're supporting their thing, right, which is fair enough, but some of them go too far. And for example, the Extinction Rebellion blocking roads and all that, and it could kind of be compared in a way to England fans, like not rioting, like causing trouble on the streets, and it's just not a good image for Extinction Rebellion. That's the first problem with Extinction Rebellion. Even though it's a minority, some of the Extinction Rebellion people create a bad image for Extinction Rebellion. That's one thing. The second thing is, I think this is mainly social media's fault, but a lot of like accounts and all that just kind of turn Extinction Rebellion into a bit of a meme or into a joke. And because of those, and that's not really Extinction Rebellion's fault, but I think they need to create themselves a better image if they want to get more supporters and like more people feeling sympathetic towards them, because their policies and their not ideology, but like what they want is what should be happening. We need more change, but they've just got a bad image, and it's just not good. Because if they had a good image, there'd be a lot more supporters, which means the government would like pay attention to more of them. There'd be more protests, but because of a small minority, they're getting a bad image, and that's kind of like messing them up in a way.
No, I agree. Especially the tube stunt, I did not agree with that in the slightest. I think it really put a bad reputation on Extinction Rebellion. But on the first point about lying in the roads, how do you propose to get change? If you're not standing in the middle of the road, how do you propose to get change? The Green Party have been around for years, and they've been trying to get environmental change through Parliament. Places like Greenpeace have been working like without protesting. There have been loads of environmental protests. So how do you propose change if you're not going to lie in the middle of a road and create a problem for the government?
Because how are you going to do it? I've not really thought about that. I'm not even going to laugh. But there's probably other ways.
It's unfair to criticize Extinction Rebellion when you don't have an alternative to try to get better.
Let me speak. There's other ways, you could like hang posters on the side of Parliament or something.
Okay, but I'm interrupting you again because that's just happened for years and years and years. Hanging posters on bloody Parliament. Like, is that really going to create change? Are parliamentarians really going to care? Yeah, because you made a ridiculous point. I'm not going to let you get away with making ridiculous points. Carry on.
You can let other people.
You could like. What? I didn't actually hear that.
He said you've let other people.
Well, I'll allow other people then. Sure.
No. He was no. Carry on. No, that's not what
you could do like you could do something that's not going to affect the roads. That's going to get into the news. Like for example, the other day these are two YouTubers. They put like a massive projector on the side of the Parliament, like Boris is a wet wipe or whatever. and that got onto like ITV News and Sky News.
Great,
And
but what's that achieved other than getting on Sky News? What's that achieved?
No.
I want to achieve change. I don't want to achieve getting on Sky News. Getting on Sky News helps, but like achieving change is not getting on Sky News.
No.
Your
I don't know.
Your point doesn't sound up to any scrutiny unless you've
Yes,
been
it does.
No, it
Because-
doesn't.
be-
I've
because-
just
no,
given
no.
you. I know. I've just
Nothing
given you
that-
an opportunity to speak, so you let me speak now. Because your point is utterly ridiculous. I've given you like plenty of time to come up with a response. I give you a few minutes at least to speak on there, and you couldn't come up with one viable like method for creating change. You just your point does not make sense. Like you could not explain your point.
No. My point is, there's other ways to do it. I just
Yeah, but
don't
what
know
other
how.
ways? There are other ways, but what other ways? What other ways are there to create change?
I know. Don't put me on the spot. I've not done research about
This whole
Extinction Rebellion.
article this whole kind of episode was about creating change and how you do it, and you've not even thought about how you create change.
Yeah, because you only added.
Daniel.
You know, I believe that Extinction Rebellion are entitled to their protests. To counter Daniel's point, I think that every single organization deserves to have their point forward. But again, I don't think the way they've done it is the correct way.
What is?
Okay. Well, I asked you the same question I asked Daniel. How do you create change other than standing in the middle of the road and annoying the government? It is annoying the government. That's basically what.
So what were some other than protests ways that you can promote changes? Petitions, voting people in, stand for your point of view.
Okay, I'm interrupting again because just ridiculous, more ridiculousness because Green Party.
No. But if more people
Party have been around for years.
wanted change about the environment, they would vote for the Green Party, but they don't. So I mean,
No, but that's a flaw with our electoral system. That's not a flaw with the Green Party. That's a flaw with our electoral system.
Can I interject here for 1 second, just to make one quick point, which is that, I mean, Felix, I do understand the point that you're making. There are a few alternatives to protest in terms of getting in a government to listen. But one thing that you haven't recognised yet is the effect, the negative consequences that something like standing in the road has on normal people just trying to go about their business. And one thing that I've been consistently concerned about during the periods of time when Extinction Rebellion has had more kind of active hands-on protests is that they've been disrupting normal working people from going into work and making their living. And that for me is something that concerns me much more than whether or not it affects the government.
I completely accept your point there. I mean, and look, I apologise to those people that have been affected by Extinction Rebellion, protests, but I just believe that climate change is more important. Like, really, I would love for people not to be disrupted in their working day. Like, really, I would love that. But I just believe climate change is just more important than that. Just more important.
But we're saying that for things that you don't care about, such as people who are against immigration or stuff. So would you say that they still deserve the right to protest even if they disrupt people's daily lives?
Everybody has the right to protest. Everyone has the right to protest, I believe. Let's go, Rajan.
Yeah, so the only reason why outsider groups like the Extinction Rebellion protest, like Felix said, is because nothing happens if you go through the conventional ways. Like, we've been going through conventional ways since the 1970s with Friends of the Earth. They were one of the first on the scene of environmentalist pressure groups, and we still haven't had change since the 1970s. That's 51 years, and nothing's happened. They identified it early, and still nothing's happened. So that's why you've got to have something different, something that's going to work. And obviously it's not been working. Obviously, I do respect Cameron's point that, you can't be disrupting lives, and it's not just being late, 2 hours late to a meeting, it's also lives and ambulances and, public services and that. But that's just the ongoing question. How do we lobby government? I think we should be looking at a more political view. We need more people accessing in the government, such as politicians who are able to lobby government. If we can get if we can get politicians, which they already do, they already pay sums of money, like tens of millions of pounds, to get high up in the government, and they donate to Conservative Party, Labour Party, they donate to all the parties. If we can get someone to actually access the government and lobby ministers, then change can happen. But for now, nothing will happen, and it's pretty sad. Mute.
Can I talk again for 1 second though? Can I just ask Felix what the changes that you want to see? Because this is genuinely something I'm interested in, because I think our climate targets are good and many scientists have said that they are positive, but I want to know what you would do.
Positive isn't good. Positive isn't good. It needs to be good. And I believe that I'd say a target like Extinction Rebellion call for 2025, but obviously I don't believe that's in the reach of our country. I think 2035, 2040 sort of area for carbon neutrality is a more ambitious target. And all the other things are tell the truth. The media should be reporting more on climate change, which has started to happen. I think that's one of the key kind of wins of Extinction Rebellion so far. Talking about climate change has increased so much. That's why we're talking about it today, because of Extinction Rebellion and School Strike for Climate. Is the reason we're talking about Extinction Rebellion today. Piers.
Well, I'm gonna go and defend the government for a bit, because I think the climate goals are quite good. I mean, if you go on the National Grid website, as I did a few days ago, you can see that 80% of the UK's electricity is being produced by non-fossil fuels, including around 40% being produced by renewables. We're increasing our nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is very safe, and biomass as well, and that's leaps and bounds ahead of not only the USA but a lot of Europe as well. And I know that the less developed countries have a much more difficult time with contributing to climate change for various reasons. But in terms of the UK, I think Extinction Rebellion won't get that big of an impact here, because most people consider what the UK's government's actions in response to climate change satisfactory.
No, I want to see the climate and ecological emergency bill passed that was tabled by Caroline Lucas as an early day motion. I would like to see that passed. I'd also like to see quicker. We need to be quick. What actually are we doing right now to combat climate change? Right now, what the government doing?
We're building 7 of the 10 largest wind farms in the world.
Okay, but how much is that going to be in terms of energy?
Petrol cars.
And we've also just built a new mine, which is
yes, one coal mine.
We haven't built the new mine, and it's being reviewed again by the local council. The reason that the government rejected that, the reason why the government let it pass, and I don't agree with that decision, but the reason they did, I think, is a fairly understandable one, in that it is a local issue that would have created many hundreds of thousands of jobs. But I still think, they were wrong to pass that through. But I do still think, as I said, I made in my first point, the government have set out their clear plans for a green industrial revolution, and also add to that our massive advances in offshore wind. I think we're making I think it's the biggest progress in the world. As Piers said, around 80% of our energy at the moment is coming from renewable energy. America's is 17%.
It's not the biggest.
Okay, so we.
Yeah, sorry, Felix, we're not Bhutan with carbon negative.
Bhutan is carbon negative.
Bhutan has what, 20,000 people? No, probably more than that. 150,000 people living there.
One of the happiest countries in the world, and it's carbon negative. It's just a fair place.
I was referring to major Western nations as I was referring to it in my comparison to America directly. But I think we need to do also more using the COP26 summit to also, as well as advancing our own goals, which I think are good and positive, as I said already, to urge other countries to take up similar paths, like China and India, of course, where they're still lagging massively behind, and also America, because although I feel as though with Biden there'll be new kind of advances in that area, so I'm not too worried about that.
No, I think it's positive what the government is doing, but it's just not good enough. It's positive, definitely positive, but not good enough. According to the Prince of Wales Corporate Leaders Group, which is 60 of some of the biggest business heads concerned about climate change, have written to the Prime Minister to say that we are not doing enough about climate change because we are not. The science says we're not doing enough, and the business leaders say we're not doing enough. We are just not doing enough on climate change. COP26 is good. What we are doing is positive. I agree with Cameron. What we're doing is positive, but it's not good enough.
So what would you do to make that change? Because you carry on saying that we need to sweeping, change and carbon neutral by 2035. But what would we do to change that and not negatively affect business and people's livelihoods?
We get in some of the top climate scientists, and because obviously I'm not a climate scientist, and I'm just saying that the government are not doing enough, and I'm listening to the science. I do not know what we have to do, like really, from a scientific perspective. I could not give you what we had to do, but I would bring in a team of scientists that are there to advise the government on climate change, and these findings should be made public. There's probably already something like this, but it needs to become a bigger part of government, listening to these climate scientists and bring in more bills to, like the CE bill, which has been backed by climate scientists across the country, and it would be really positive if that was brought in. Again, I think we need to listen to climate scientists, and we need to bring in the CE bill, and we need to bring back our carbon target further forward.
Yes, like Piers Corbyn.
Can I just say about Daniel's point? I feel as though we consistently get drawn down this path of thinking that business and our environmental targets cannot coexist. I don't think that's true. If you look at the government's plan for a green industrial revolution, what that means is that we'll be creating these 250,000 jobs whilst also improving our environmental situation. So it's not really right to say that those two things can't coexist.
Yeah. Agreed. And like if we brought, like, it's gonna create thousands upon thousands of jobs, and I mean, going back to a point like in the 1980s when Thatcher was in charge, she took away all the coal mines with no like kind of promise of more jobs, and climate change or like combating climate change create those jobs in the north, and I think we can make the north a powerhouse in terms of green energy.
We agree. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I know, it's so exciting. Thank you everyone for watching. A bit different. I mean, it was still entertaining, I thought. Next week we've got Ruth Cadbury, maybe? Hopefully. Thank you for watching. Such a shambles.